thing. As a goaltender, that's definitely a mental thing.
Were you a goaltender?
I did play semi-professional hockey once. I don't know if you're aware of that. But that's when we saw Detroit Red Wings, Ben Bishop again. They yanked him out. They put in Vasilevsky. I thought that was a good move by Cooper, but the poor kid, man, you're putting the rookie in, and he hasn't played in over a month.
Yeah.
And immediately you're feeding them to the wolves because there's no defense, there's no forecheck, there's no back checking going on. It was a comedy of errors in that game.
It was actually a comedy at that point. I was sitting there with some coworkers, and we were literally laughing when Montreal scored. It was just it was just, you have something, you have a day where everything just goes wrong. By the 12th time something goes wrong, you just start laughing at it, and that's really what it turned into. It was comedic.
Laughing.
You said they pulled Bishop. It almost looked like Bishop pulled himself. After that third goal went by, he literally just threw his hands up and just skated off. It wasn't like somebody flagged him off. It didn't look like, it looked like he said, "I'm out. I'm obviously not effective. I'm done." And he walked right back to the locker room. He took some of his pads off, but he came back out half dressed and sat there. But
and it sucked out because Vasi came in cold.
Yeah.
Very cold.
Oh, yeah.
And it sucks because goalies, a player that's sitting on the bench and needs to warm up can jump on the freaking, the bike. They have bikes set up that they can jump on there and keep themselves warm while they're off ice. Jerome McGinley, prime example during the 2003-2004 Stanley Cup Finals, would do that. He would get on the elliptical bike when he was off ice. He wouldn't sit on the bench. He would sit right in the hallway and do his thing and keep up and keep going. And it almost won him a cup in that series, but you can't do that with goalies. They got to kind of sit there.
So now here you are in a situation where you're going to Game 5 back in Montreal. A ton of momentum swings back to Montreal, a team that has been plagued by a lack of offense. And now they've clearly found that, or at least feel like they found that. And let's face it, when you're not scoring, guys, Mike, you've played hockey. When you're not scoring, you're gripping the stick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're pressing your game.
Yeah.
You're not playing the way you normally do.
Your shots are off.
Yeah, now they relax a little bit. And you got to wonder, do they get some swagger back on this? But Caleb, you made a point on one of the breaks we were talking about this, how the Lightning, when your back's against the wall, when you're the team down 3-0, you can't lose that game. But when you're the team up 3-0, hey,
I got three more chances.
You got a cushion,
yeah.
So, and that's what it looked like.
Yeah, absolutely.
They looked tired, but they also looked like they just the urgency wasn't there.
Unlike the Chicago Blackhawks last night, who absolutely dispatched of the Minnesota Wild. Unfortunately,
4-game sweep.
4-game sweep.
Wow. I didn't see that one coming. I picked the Blackhawks to go to the finals in the West.
Yeah, me too.
But I didn't see a 4-game sweep in Minnesota. Talk about a team that was so hot going into the playoffs. This was one of those teams that you didn't want to face in the first round.
Well, look at Corey Crawford, though. Corey Crawford has stepped up into his place. Was it Darling? Was the other guy?
The backup goaltender, Scott Darling. He
yeah.
carried him through the first series because Crawford had the yips in the first series.
Big yips. He had the real big yips. He could not save his way out of a wet paper
and
bag.
This was coming off arguably his best regular season he's ever had, Crawford.
Right. Now, Corey Crawford is back to his playoff ability, and his confidence is there, and that's what makes me nervous. Everybody's putting the Lightning and Chicago in the finals is what they were.
That's what I picked.
And Chicago victorious over the Lightning in the Stanley Cup Finals. And Hockey News, all the guys from the NHL Network, they're all putting Chicago, Tampa in the finals. So we'll see what happens on that. But with Corey Crawford playing the way he is, I hope he gets the yips again.
Meanwhile, the Rangers.
Oh, yeah.
Who saw this coming? The Rangers on the verge of elimination. That we say this
I did.
As we do the show and the game is on in front of us. And so far, a scoreless tie. But the Rangers can't find their offense. And with Montreal, it wasn't surprising. This was a team that struggled to score all year. But with the Rangers, it's a shock because the Rangers were the top scoring team in the regular season with the Lightning being second. So the Rangers, another team that was just surging and playing so well going into the playoffs. Goaltending hasn't been an issue. Lundqvist has delivered. Virtually every game, every game that they've lost in this playoff has been a 1-goal loss.
Yeah, Marty St. Louis can't score his way out of a wet paper bag either. He's got out of all 9 games, he's scored nothing, not even a point.
And he's lost a step. He's definitely slowed down when you watch him play.
He has.
But the Rangers back against the wall, down 3-1 here in Game 5, struggling against the Capitals team that frankly, to me, is scary. I was hoping as a Lightning fan that the Rangers would win this series because I felt like we matched up well. Let's face it, we beat them all 4 times we played them in the regular season.
Plus, we got an inside scoop from 3 different players.
Exactly, with the former Rangers on the team. Washington's a scary team, guys. They've got, you talk about goaltending, exceptional goaltending from Braden Holtby, who had a great regular season in his own right and has played remarkably well in the playoffs. But the Capitals are very similar to the Anaheim Ducks, where they have a lot of big players. The forwards, their forward lines are all just a bunch of really big dudes. They shored up that defense in the offseason, signing guys like Orpik and Matty Niskanen.
Their defensive backfield, yeah, there you go, is very imposing now. It's a lot more imposing. They would not have beat the Rangers last year. No way. But now, I mean,
Barry Trotz behind the bench.
Barry Trotz has taken Ovechkin. Ovechkin was the kind of player that they tried to have him doing everything, and he said to Ovechkin, I want you to do what you do best. I'm not putting you out on power plays anymore. I'm not putting you in defensive situations anymore. You go out and do what you do best. You score.
Well, you put him on a power play,
and
not
look
put him
what
on
happened.
A penalty kill.
Well,
you said power play, but
that's
you
what I
meant penalty kill.
Right.
Yeah.
So look what he's done this year. Top of the league in scoring again, and he is playing some of the best hockey of his career this year. Ovechkin is back to where the league as a whole needs a player like that to be. So to see that is, I mean, as a hockey fan, I appreciate that, but as a Lightning fan, it makes me nervous if we have to face them in the East Finals.
You know, while we were talking about the Rangers, from one New York team to another, the Islanders, who were successful in taking the Capitals to 7 games, actually played a lot better against the Capitals than what we've seen from the Rangers thus far.
I didn't expect it.
But in a sad note, the ice has been melted down for the last time in Nassau Coliseum, the home of the New York Islanders, ever since their inception, ever since they were an expansion team, in the NHL, and this was a storied franchise. They won 4 Stanley Cups in a row. In the 80s, they were a phenomenal
Messier
team.
Messier and all them.
No, Messier wasn't on that.
I'm sorry.
Talking about Mike Bossy.
Mike
Mike Bossy and Trottier and Patty LaFontaine and all those guys. The great Billy Smith, the goaltender who was my idol as a kid growing up, made me want to goaltend. And the last game, that was the last game played in Nassau. Moving to Brooklyn next year, moving to the Barclay Arena where the Brooklyn Nets play. And this is going to be an interesting situation because you're moving from Long Island to Brooklyn. I mean, that's a hell of a move.
That is a very big move.
That's a completely different, in some ways, a completely different fan base. That's a drive. I mean, if you live in Long Island, to go from there to Brooklyn, that's a hell of a journey at certain times of the day or certain times of the night. Do they travel? Do you wind up having to adopt a new fan base? And then on top of that, that arena was really built for basketball, so the attendance, they say a full capacity game in hockey will only be about 16,000.
I think with where they're at and the success of the Brooklyn Nets, because they've been received very well. I mean, we're not a basketball team, but the Brooklyn Nets have really been received well. I think they'll be received pretty well there.
Ooh. The floors are very squeaky, by the way. The floors are very squeaky here.
Sorry, I ate kimchi earlier.
Cabbage?
Yes, kimchi is a little cabbage.
Sancho, Ben Bishop has the yips.
Oh, gosh, bad.
You have some yips of your own.
I have the one cheek slips.
Yeah, you've got the slips. Yeah. That's a good one.
Ben, what were you saying the seating capacity would be?
I think it's only like 15,000 to 16,000, right?
Currently at the Nassau Coliseum, it's only 16,000 for hockey.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So yeah,
okay, so it's similar.
You had me peaked. I was looking up the old Coliseum there, but yeah, they're at 16,000 as well. So
an old arena. I mean, you're talking about an arena that's about 30 some odd years old, and
72.
They're going to make a lot more money on the club level seats, on the suites and all that, which they didn't have at Nassau.
But the problem that they're going to have is the fan base. I mean, the fan base will probably stay mostly with them, but I know they're upset that they're leaving. They're really hurt that they're leaving.
And like I said, I mean, that's a hell of a journey. Traffic in New York City, let's face it, it's bad. And when you're taking LIE, you're coming from Long Island all the way to Brooklyn. That's a hell of a journey. And that's not a fun drive to make at the end of a game.
The LIE is not a non-congested stretch of road either.
No, that's not a fun thing to drive.
Lots of people rolling off that baby.
From an arena in New York that no longer exists to an arena in Seattle that's now being built. The Seattle Downtown Authority approved. There was some environmental approval necessary to build an arena, a prospect, if you will, in Seattle. To build an arena in an effort to try and obtain an NBA team, in an effort to try to obtain an NHL team. And you got to wonder, now that they got this approved, there's long been a desire, not admittedly, but you hear the whispers that there's been a desire in the NHL to have a team in Seattle.
Right.
So is this going to happen now? And I'm telling you right now, this is my prediction.
Yes.
It's going to happen, and it's going to be the Arizona Coyotes. And the reason I say that is because Arizona, the new ownership group had a little clause in their deal where if they lost $50 million over 2 years, they could pull the plug on the Glendale lease. And rumor has it.
Very smart, by the way.
Rumor has it they've hit that number.
I'm sure they have. That team is not doing
So
well.
you build the arena in Seattle 2 years from now. It'll take a year, 2 years, whatever, to build this thing. Arizona Coyotes are going to be in Seattle. That's my prediction.
I do not doubt that in the least because the Arizona Cardinals over the last couple of years have been an absolute
The Cardinals or the
shame.
Coyotes? You called them the Cardinals.
Well, you know how it goes. Yeah.
I'll check with my
Wow.
friend, the lovely Jay Foss. Her dad actually works for the Coyotes. So
Oh, really?
we'll see if we can get some inside
Nice.
news there.
What?
Yeah, he used to work for the Lightning. He was a
Let's fly out and
he was-
watch a game before they close out.
he, he was a trainer for the Lightning. His name's on the Stanley Cup, actually.
Oh, that's awesome.
So is Brad Lukowicz's mom.
Really?
Yeah, Brad Lukowicz was playing for Dallas at the time, and he didn't. He played one game in the playoffs, and he didn't make it on the cup, but his mom did. So
How did that happen?
But, well, it's all about player votes and who gets on the cup. So remember when Eric Perrin played for the Lightning during the Stanley Cup Finals when the Lightning went and won
Sure,
the cup?
right.
Brad Lukowicz was one of the forefront guys next to Marty St. Louis, because Eric Perrin might have played, who also played with Marty St. Louis at University of Vermont,
Right.
Who actually was he was the top scorer over Marty St. Louis.
Another catamount.
Yeah, another cat.
Yeah.
And Brad Lukowicz was on the forefront of voting to make sure that Eric Perrin got on the cup with them, even though he only played maybe 1 or 2 games in the playoffs with them. Because Brad Lukowicz knew the heartache of being on a team during the Stanley Cup Finals and not being able to have your name enshrined forever. So I thought that was a pretty cool little fact.
How does that get back to his mom being on there?
I'm sorry. His mom was one of the main people in the front office. I apologize.
Oh, okay.
So she ended up they have a lot of office people, and
Yeah.
the head marketing guy might get on there, kind of thing. So that's how I apologize. Yeah.
One last hockey thing. Mike Babcock, coach of the Red Wings, the much coveted coach that is a free agent now. Ken Holland, the GM of Detroit, wanted to re-sign him, tried to. They couldn't make it happen. As of today, Ken Holland, despite the fact that Babcock's contract doesn't technically lapse until the first week of June, has officially given Babcock permission to start talking to other teams. And this looks like, at this point, the fact that they've gotten this far with it, it looks like Babcock's leaving. Now, he was coaching the Red Wings for 10 years. Perhaps it's time to move on. And it seems like that's where it's going. And when you look at a free agent coach in hockey, I can never think of a time when a coach has been more of a hotter name where this guy's going to command some big bucks. They're talking that he could get $5 million a season from whoever signs this guy. You look at teams like Toronto, like Buffalo, like Edmonton, and all of them would just it would be they'd throw a parade in these cities if they were to sign a guy like Mike Babcock. And the rumor is that Edmonton might be the front runner because that's a lot closer to where Mike Babcock and his family are from.
Right.
But it looks like the Red Wings are going to lose him. Now, they do have one of the most desired AHL coaches in their organization.
Or
in Canada, they say organization.
Yeah.
So it looks like Holland, GM of Detroit, has accepted that this is going to happen. Expect to see Detroit's AHL coach moved up and hired as their NHL coach, and expect to see Babcock behind a different bench next year. That's another prediction of mine.
I don't know. I mean, I'd like to see Babcock keep going because I mean they're obviously they're in a rebuilding phase. I mean, even Andy said it himself. I mean, they got a lot of young guys. Most of the guys on the team weren't even alive when they last started their winning streak, their playoff streak. So